Good afternoon, sixth form. Well, we're a week away from the start of term and saw this article today in the news and thought it's about time to do some revision videos, really. And why not start with our good old favourite, the product life cycle? And look, I've even got a purple pen. Quick apologies for the artwork. Remember, I am a Dalmatian and don't blame me. So I used ChatGPT to design the artwork based around today's article. Very interesting. Marks and Spencer's for years have been, losing their market share to do with clothing to the likes of Next, H&M and all those sorts of things. And their cash cow in some ways, back onto Boston Matrix, has been food. So when you go into a Marks and Spencer's, you'll see there's more square footage dedicated to food than there used to be for clothing, and that's for the obvious reasons. Pop into Milton Keynes, Marks and Spencer's, and you'll see that half of their shop floor is empty with clothes and their food court is crammed. Well, clothing has actually gone on an improvement trajectory, is improving. They're selling more of it, especially online sales. So Marks and Spencer's have announced that they're going to do a clothing only store in the old converted Battersea Power Station, very trendy part of London. Lots of destination shoppers, probably not going there for a quick sandwich, maybe. So therefore, they have decided to go with clothing only. Here's an article that I've sort of written, not the one I read in the Times today, and you should pause the video. Read the article and remember you're going to do a question on the product life cycle, so you need to revise the product life cycle. This is a bit of a recap for the upper sixth. We'll teach this probably in a couple of months to the lower sixth, and look for language linked to the different stages of the product life cycle. Now remember, we've got sales, that's a pound sign sort of, and we have got, I can hear you sort of shouting, time. Down here we've got R&D, introduction stage, growth stage, maturity stage, decline, possible extension strategies. If we were linking this into the Boston Matrix language, then maybe we would be talking about our cash cows being up here, our dogs down here. And what do we do with dogs? Watch out, I'm a Dalmatian. It could be that you invest lots of time and energy in them to revitalise them. And that's maybe what these new stores are. Maybe this is an extension strategy for their clothing brand. Maybe it's because of the likes of, here we have the wonderful Helen Mirren, for example, very trendy, very lovely lady, and maybe these sorts of celebs and also the copious amounts of money they're spending on marketing is actually helping them to regain. So changing this dog back into a cash cow, maybe changing this declining cash cow, sort of. Remember, this is on a spectrum, not just in 4 quadrants, back into that rising star. Who knows? I think from reading the articles that are out there today, Marks and Spencer's are still continuing to strive to reduce the decline in their clothing range. Okay, maybe this extension strategy is a way of doing it. Okay, read the case study. Look out for signs of the product life cycle. Did you pause the video? Did you read the case study? Very much hope so, or it's not starting the year off well, is it? Let's face it. So here is the question. Now, you will remember, and if you're lower sixth watching this video, you will now learn that if you see something like using your knowledge of, you had better use your knowledge of. And in this case, it's of the product life cycle. Now, we know that we are dealing with research and development, R&D, introduction, growth, maturity, decline, possible extension strategies. So we are looking to see that language in essays, or you ain't using it. Okay, and if you're not using it and you've just sort of blagged your way through the answer, don't expect more than half marks. And 5 out of 10 is not getting you to a Russell Group university. So you need, well, most of the time, you need to make sure that you answer the question directly. If you read enough of the examiner reports, and we'll go through these in class, and you'll be reading them independently because you're all brilliant students, of course, you will see that the feedback from the chief examiner is learn your definitions. Okay, that is the foundation of all essays. Learn your definitions, learn your pros and cons, contextualise your answers, and you should get to level 4, which is the big money, which is the big prizes. That's where you get your A's and your A stars from, as long as you finish the exam paper. So let's go back to the question. Using your knowledge of the product life cycle, so we're going to use the language of the product life cycle, assess, well, we're going to need, we know that this is going to be a plus and a minus. Another thing that you will see in examiner reports, if you read them, is common mistake of students is one-sided arguments. So if this question was to say assess the benefits, you can guarantee a certain percentage of the population would just answer the question. One benefit is, another benefit is. The problem is that's not balanced. You're going to get capped at least 50%. At most, sorry. So probably you're going to get level 2 on a 10 marker. That's 4 marks. So, it's not good. 40% because you've not bothered putting balance. So make sure you use the word however. It sort of conditions you to write balanced arguments. Assess the likely impact. Well, this is going to be impact. Well, impact on M&S. Well, we understand, but this is where we think, well, what are they trying to do? Well, if you've read the case study, which I'm sure you have, they are clearly trying to regain market share in a competitive fashion industry. Okay, we've got the mention of profits. I'm thinking they might want to make profits eventually, and here we are, greater market demand. So they're trying to position themselves so they can increase sales, increase profitability, and regain some of that market share that they've lost the likes of Next and those other retailers that are lost in the middle of this marketplace. Market positioning language there. So, M&S's decision to trial standalone clothing shops on the maturity stage of its clothing ranges. So this is our context. Okay, we know that the hook in the question is assess the likely impact. So we always identify, this is our hook, excuse the mess here, it's the beginning of the year. At least I'm using a purple pen. So we're thinking about the impact on, well, clearly their aims and objectives. Market maturity stage, well, we would make sure we're talking about the maturity stage. We would describe the maturity stage. We understand the maturity stage is, basically not growing their sales much. Yeah, well, they want to regain market share. Well, this might help them retain that and stay in the maturity stage, or it might be that it reduces the possibility of further decline. Okay, it could be to start growing again. There's lots of different bits of language we could use here as long as you've revised the product life cycle. We know the context is clothing ranges, so you're not going to be talking about sandwiches. Okay, now remember, your target is level 4. Remember, it is not perfection. We are looking for level 4. And if you can finish the paper, if you can get 100% on your 4 markers in paper 1, paper 2, that's 16%. If you get level 4 on your essays, 10, 12, 20s, then you are going to get an A grade, maybe an A star. Yeah. So if you are over perfecting the easy questions, this is an easy question. Most students in the UK understand the product life cycle, and most students know when it says using your knowledge that you better use the language from product life cycle. By the way, if you don't, you'll be in the minority that fail. So what we're looking for is level 4. So we're looking for a good use of knowledge of the product life cycle. We are throughout, by the way, thorough is later, is here. Thorough. So I'm using the knowledge. I'm showing I understand it. I'm not just regurgitating the textbook. Supported throughout by relevant and effective use of context. Okay. We know that Peter Drucker said cash is king, but in A-level business, especially with our Edexcel curriculum, we are context is king. Okay, if you do not contextualize your answers, guess what happens? Yes, you get capped at 50%. There's lots of reasons to cap you at 50%, by the way, but if you do not contextualize your answers, we will cap you at that, but probably give you level 2, which is not quite 50%, I understand. So what we've got here is we're looking for, also the next thing is our logical chains of argument. Now we teach the BLT technique, which is very similar to your English GCSE. So because leading to, resulting in, I know it's an R, therefore resulting in is too many words for my liking, but we'll call it BLT because I like sandwiches. So we're talking about logical chains of reasoning. We've got to have those in each of our paragraphs. Now at the end of this T, it comes back to the hook in the question, which will be an impact on, yes, you've got it, an aim and objective for Marks and Spencer's. Okay, they're trying to regain market share. We've identified that. Quite a lot of the questions from the awarding body, because they're kinder than me, they will tell you what they're trying to achieve. So don't just regurgitate market share. It could be take customers away from Next, even if it's not in the case study. Yeah. Good business students enjoy their subject. Good business students keep up to date with the news. Good business students can contextualize because they understand what's going on in the real world. Because when they read an article in the Times or maybe even the Guardian, not the Sun, please, BBC News is fine. You can read that in about 3 minutes. So if you can read an article contextualized with business theory, you are on the route to an A or an A star. Well done. So we are down to the conclusion. Nearly. Is it balanced? Remember what I said. If it's not balanced, 50%. Is it well contextualized? Just in case you didn't get it from this bit up here. Using quantitative or qualitative information. Well, this one's not really giving you a huge amount of quant. Can't see any numbers in there, for example. So using the knowledge, not just quoting it, you're interpreting, and shows an awareness of competing arguments. That's when you compare to the alternative. Now, the alternative here is not opening a clothing only store. We'll talk about that in our justification, in our conclusion. Okay, now remember, sorry for the mess here, but we're aiming for level 4. Okay, level 4 is what you're looking for, not perfection. Now, what you're going to do is, based on this question, remember, using your knowledge. I'm expecting a good definition at the beginning of this. Remember, the chief examiner says common mistakes are students don't define or don't really understand their definitions, get confused easily, depending on the examiner report you read. So our knowledge is that. This is how I would really plan, by the way. I would then identify the hook. My hook is likely impact. And I'm going to be looking for something in the case study to do with their aims and objectives. Unless the question's lovely and just tells me. This one doesn't. It's a bit mean. But we know they're looking to grow their market share or regain their market share, however you want to phrase that. We understand that the context is trialling their clothing stores, and the impact is likely impact on the maturity stage, but remember it's in context with their aim and objectives. Maturity stage and really regaining that market share. It's a 10 marker, so we are looking for a balanced argument. You could answer this, one positive impact, one negative impact, answer the question, justify all the other things that I mentioned before about chains of argument and context. Or if you're one of those people that show off and write quickly, then you could do impact positive, however, impact negative, however, answer the question, justify. I don't really think you need to do that, to be honest with you. It's not the number of paragraphs. There's not a magic formula. And if you're watching enough videos online and they say, make sure you follow my structure, then they're wrong. Read the examiner report and you will see there is not a magic formula. They just want you to be able to demonstrate that you really understand what's going on, that you've got balance, that you've got context, that you're interpreting. The examiners are not trained to look for a magic formula. If they were, then those are the only structures that teachers would be talking about. They wouldn't be talking about different ones, would they? Okay, so there is not a magic formula, just learn how to write essays according to the standards. Now, I would like you to pause this video in a second, especially when I put the essay up. And each paragraph, I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to pause for a second. That means you hit pause, you mark it, and then come back. If not, just watch me mark, I suppose. A bit boring though. Mark the essay using K, App, and AJ. Now, some of your teachers will say E for evaluation, for example. Answer the question, justify your answer. K is for knowledge. Application, using theory and also the evidence in the case study. And remember, you're going to analysis. The analysis is a minimum of 3 chains of argument. And remember, the end of that chain of argument comes back to the hook in context. Okay. Then, at the end of this video, probably, I'd like you to give the student feedback. What went well, EBI. You can't type it online because I upload like it's a child's video, so you can't send me nice or horrible messages. So it's good for you to feedback on other people's work. Maybe argue with a friend over it or something. Normally I only get 2 people watching my videos. You could meet up with them. So think about that and use terms from the mark scheme. There is no point in you learning essay technique really if you don't understand why. If you understand why your teachers recommend a certain way of writing an essay, trust me, you're a lot further ahead than other people that just learn like robots. Robots, we'll ignore modern AI, but old-fashioned robots can't think on their feet. They can't adapt when something unfamiliar comes along, unlike AI. Then I'd like you to award a mark using the mark scheme. So here we go. We're going to walk through this one. So here is our standards. I've mentioned the 2 different structures that you could possibly use for this. Remember, there's not a magic formula other than we're aiming for level 4, and the rest of this is unpleasantness and results in you possibly going to one of those universities that are in the Times today where 99% of their students never repay their student debt. So moving on, a nice definition to start off, the product life cycle, and you'll notice I've put PLC in brackets. That means I can now call the product life cycle PLC from now on if I want to. Okay, it's polite to write it in full. If it's something like, I don't know, FDI or GDP or something like that, the examiners know what you're talking about. If I start putting PLC in here, what could it possibly be misinterpreted for? Well, we could get confused with public limited company. So go very careful with abbreviating unless you explain what it is. So the product life cycle outlines the stages of product experiences: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. Forgot to mention extension strategies, but never mind. So if I was marking this, I would do a K. Okay, now I'd like you to pause the video, read the next paragraph, and I'd like you to think about, is it applied? Are there a minimum 3 chains of argument? And we'll ignore the A and the J at the moment because that'll come up in the conclusion. Pause the video and go through, and remember we're using the terminology of the product life cycle as well. Pause the video, then we'll go on. Hopefully you pause the video. The introduction of standalone shops is likely to extend the maturity phase Marks and Spencer's ranges by revitalising the brand and attracting new customers. Okay, there's a bit of a, I'm going to put LAN on there. There's a bit of a chain of analysis there, not a huge amount, but it's really, let's face it, if we were doing P paragraphs, this is my P for my point, isn't it? And then we're looking for familiar chains of argument. Now, examiners get tired. They're all brilliant, they're all perfect, of course, but they might miss something. So why not be in rapport with your examiner? Why not lay your exam question out in a nice and easy to read format? You'll notice that there is a space there. There will be another space down here, by the way. My counter argument starts with the word however on a separate line. Now, you don't need to do that to get to level 4, but it does make the examiner's life a bit easier. And if you make the examiner's life easier, it's easier for them to give you level 4 marks, isn't it? If you've got spider scrawl all over a page and scribbles and asterisks and I don't know, it's quite hard to mark. Hopefully the brilliant examiners will see everything. You never know, they might be tired. So let's look for the common chain of argument linked to my favourite sandwich. This is important because offering a boutique style, now we're going to start writing AP here because that's in the case study. That's actually application. We're not just talking about shops and stuff, products, raw materials and all the other abstract waffle that we see in essays sometimes. We're talking about boutique style. Focused shopping experience aligns with customer preferences, consumer preferences, leading to increased customer engagement in sales, particularly in premium lines. Okay, that's mentioned in the case study, resulting in prolonged product life cycle. Ooh, that's sort of linked to the question with maturity. The new Battersea Power Station application, focusing on clothing and beauty, reflects M&S strategy to rejuvenate its fashion offer and has already seen increased sales and market share. Okay, now the chain of argument really was up to 3 about there. We're going to put an AN there, just pretend that says AN. But you'll see that by then interpreting the case study instantly adds at least another chain of argument. So because we like to show off, we're going to put GAN, good analysis. Okay, because it's bloody good analysis, to be honest with you. And there's a load of chain of arguments there. It's well contextualized. There's a couple of bits of application in there. And I'll be honest with you, I find it easier to write fully contextualized answers instead of abstract rubbish that looks like it's come out of a textbook. And at least it sounds like M&S. Then we need to make sure the examiner can see our counter argument. However, the success of this pilot project is crucial. You'll notice I've put quotation marks around that. So even if the examiner's not memorised the case study, they will work out that that's from the case study. Now, you're not going to trick examiners by shoving quotation marks around stuff. This is really for you, to be honest with you, to make sure you use the case study in every single argument. Now, we've obviously used it there, we've obviously used it there, we've definitely used it there. So, is it contextualised and throughout? Well, we haven't seen the rest of the answer yet, so we'll see. If customers do not respond positively to the cost of, the cost of this could accelerate and decline the phase, accelerate the decline phase by reducing profitability sooner than accepted. That is more application, because that's actually applying the theory. Now, you must have a use of theory and also a use of the case study. You can't just do a theory-based answer, or you've got it, you're probably down to level 2, maximum 50%, because you've got an abstract answer and the examiner will cap your mark. Pause the video, do your app and an and stuff like that, and see if you can find those 3 chains of argument. Did you pause the video? I don't think so. Standalone clothing shops could help M&S differentiate its clothing range, sustaining the maturity phase by enhancing brand loyalty and perceived value. Well, I'm going to give myself a knowledge mark there. That's very textbook. probably lifted it from the textbook, to be honest with you. So it sounds technical, it sounds wonderful, but unless it's contextualized, we're going to be in that territory for that paragraph, aren't we? So let's see if we can find some chains of argument. You've probably already found them. This is important because a dedicated clothing store creates a premium and exclusive brand image, exclusive even, leading to a stronger customer loyalty and higher perceived value, resulting in sustained market share. Oh, that's actually their aim, isn't it? I'm going to put that in there. During the maturity phase, M&S focus on premium fashion forward lines in these, that's another bit of application, standalone shops as part of its broader strategy that has already improved market performance. Okay, so this is, again, we're up to our analysis there, 3 chains of argument, a little bit of context in there, not brilliant to be honest with you. I'm going to give myself a lap for that one. Limited application. I'll be all right later, I think, looking at the quotation marks in the however paragraph. And then what it does is it continues. Probably another 2 chains of argument. So we're going to give ourselves a nice big fat gan. However, what a lovely way to tell the examiner, hold tight, here comes my counter-argument. The move represents a shift in M&S's retail strategy, which could alienate existing customers who are accustomed to the convenience of mixed product stores. This is a nice bit of application. Where's my sandwiches? Especially the BLTs. Potentially weakening overall brand loyalty if not carefully managed. Now, you will notice that up here, the argument is stronger customer loyalty. Down here, we have got weakened customer loyalty. Now, when you're doing your however points, you must make sure that your however point is for the point that you have just written and not just some random thought that you've decided to have, or it ain't a counter argument. Okay, I know that sounds a bit obvious, but we do see that sometimes. Oh, however, I've remembered something from the textbook and I'm just going to throw it into my essay. Then we go to the conclusion. Wow, that's a big conclusion. Clearly it's not. What you need to do with the A is you need to directly answer the question. Now, at this point, I would normally say, before you write your conclusion, go back and reread the question. Remind yourself of the hook. Remind yourself of the part, there's 2 parts to a hook, likely impact on the maturity stage. And we know that this is linked to market share. So what you want to do is you want to answer the question. Overall, the likely impact is good or bad. Okay, it doesn't have to be contextualised too much because you're going to do that in the justification. But you do need to directly answer the question. A common mistake is students answer a different question because they forget what the question is. They've put so much energy into writing their beautiful P paragraphs and actually using the case study that they forget and they go, overall, I think cheese is a really good idea. And they forget this is about clothing. Overall, the trial of standalone clothing shops is likely to be positively impact on the maturity phase of M&S's clothing ranges. It's not exciting, but it does answer the question. Now, at this point, the examiner is really hoping you've contextualised something because your conclusion needs to be contextualised. Okay, and your justification is part of your conclusion, which I've not shown you yet. You need to understand as well that around about 1/3 of your marks are also for the conclusion. Now, with 1/3 of your marks being worth or linked to, the conclusion, you might want roughly 1/3 of your answer to be your conclusion. Lots of the time, people will put their heart and soul into writing that, and they get to the conclusion and they write the conclusion. Maybe they answer the question because they've reread the question or they remember it. They then get to the justification and all they do is just repeat what they've already written. Golden rule number 712 of Business A level is you only get the marks once. So if you're just going to simply repeat yourself in your justification, don't bother writing it. Just move on. Next question's a 12 marker in the paper. So just move on. Don't bother writing it, you're not going to get the marks. However, if you write a slight interpretation, a variation on what you've written, you might get it. Now, I like the word without because I think most conclusions you can consider the opportunity costs, so that opportunity foregone. Now, with this one, they're opening up clothing stores. So what's the alternative to opening up clothing stores? I can hear the shouts coming over the internet. Not opening clothing stores. Without opening these new clothing stores, M&S might struggle to keep its new clothing ranges relevant in a highly competitive market. The lack of focused boutique style, look at that, there's a bit of application in there, could result in, chain of argument, in the brand's clothing segment appearing outdated, which is essentially concerning given the M&S, that M&S has only recently rejuvenated its fashion. So again, there's a bit of context in there. And now what we're thinking is up here, it's a positive. Down here is if they didn't do it, guess what they're going to miss out on? It's a slight reinterpretation of what you've written. Is it brilliant? Not really sure. And this is the bit that's going to blow your mind. Is it level 4? And if it is level 4, I'm going to stop recording this video and go and have a party. So let's have a check. Now, remember all the marking we've done? Yeah, we've done all this loads of marking, K-app and Anne and K and lots of purple pen. And we're thinking, is it level 4? So is it accurate throughout? Well, it does link back to product lifecycle language. We've got decline stage in there. We've got maturity stage in there. We've got growth in sales and talking about those sorts of things. Now, is it supported throughout? That means all of it. You need to contextualise your conclusions by relevant and effective use of the business context. Well, I think so. I'm going to tick that. A coherent and logical chain of reasoning showing causes and effect. Well, in these paragraphs, have we got a minimum of 3 chains of argument? Well, we've done our big GANs, which is more than 3, isn't it? Yeah, and also we've got howevers in there, which it's more along this line of an answer structure. So this actually has got chains of argument in it as well. We've got way more than 3. Okay, tick. Is it balanced? Well, yes. And also my howevers, yeah, they are contextualised. They've both got quotation marks in it and I've interpreted the data. Now, if I was picking holes in this, I would say, is it truly balanced? Because this is a positive argument, this is a positive argument, and then these little arguments are negatives. Now, if I wanted to be an absolute job's worth on this, I would say it's not truly balanced. So would I give it full marks? Probably not. Yeah. So keep that in mind. And shows an awareness of competing arguments without, yeah. Not only, however, for counter arguments, my points, I've actually considered the impact of not doing it. Yeah. Often missed out in essays, leading to a supported judgment. Well, the judgment is there, the overall answer, and it's supported by that point there, and also the stuff we've already written. Now, if I was marking this as an examiner, clearly I'm not an examiner because I'm a dog, I would think chains of argument, context, sort of balanced, it's quite well balanced but not perfect, answers the question and they've sort of justified it without just repeating themselves for a laugh. Is it level 4? Yes, it is. The instant behaviour of an examiner is to shove it in the middle. We'll call that 8 out of 10. Now, depending who's marking this is going to blow your mind if you've not heard this before. They could give it 9. They could give it 7. I don't think it's 10 out of 10, by the way. Now, if an examiner gives it 8 out of 10, and then, I don't know, on results day you appeal against a decision, the chief examiner will read this and they might give it 9 out of 10. Well, tough luck, your mark's not changing because it's within 1 mark. If they thought it was the best thing that they've read in a while, the chief examiner might give it 10 out of 10. That's a 10, by the way. Yeah. Then they're going to change it because there's a 1 mark variance on 10 markers. There's a 2 mark variance on 12s and 20s. There's none on 4s, by the way. So actually, if someone gives you 8 out of 10, have a party. It's 80%. This year's A star was roughly 70%. It's an A star essay. Move on. Have a BLT. Hopefully that was useful. I advise you to write your own version of this. I apologise for all the scribbles all over the screen. I've got so excited because it's my first video of the academic year. Not that we're back at school yet. And if anyone asks, look at all the purple pen. Have a lovely day.